Hi everyone. I'm going to review my games from WOSC in Barcelona. It's almost been a month. Had a few things going on. But these games are going to be the games that I played in the team tournament on the first day. So there's 3 games. I was on the Shogi Harbor team along with Tivi and Lincoln. And so let's just get into the games. So I recorded almost all of my games. There are a couple that I just kind of forgot to push play, but the team tournament games I got all of. And so this is my first game. And so I played kind of, my standard opening that I've been playing, which is kind of push the rook pawn and get your opponent to bring this bishop up. And in this game, because my opponent played this silver to 2-2 move, I decided I was going to play an opening that I've kind of been learning, kind of as like a side idea. And it's an extremely aggressive opening called Kokugen Hayakurigin. It basically just means like really fast attacking silver. And so basically, even when my opponent's kind of pushing his rook pawn, I kind of just ignore it and bring my silver to attack the bishop head as quickly as I can. So this looks a little bit scary, letting my opponent exchange pawns. But actually, you're completely fine as long as you bring this gold up. The pawn drop isn't that scary. So my opponent decided to drop his rook all the way back. There's like 5 different moves that he can play there, but I'm kind of prepared for all of them. This is kind of like the most calm one. And here my opponent kind of tries to build his castle in some ways, but my attack is actually just too fast. So he's already gone wrong a little bit here, letting my silver get up to the 5th rank. And I think everybody knows if you've played bogeying or you've played against it, that when the silver kind of gets on this 5th rank, the bogeying's kind of already succeeded. And so here, I get this pawn drop in, and I'm pretty much at this point just thinking, okay, I already won the game, which is a bad habit of mine where I have a good position, and I kind of tune out. So my opponent found this like interesting move here to kind of try and sidestep my silver, but it doesn't quite work because of this nice move, silver into 4-3. Basically, when he takes with the gold, the silver on 2-2 hangs. So obviously the opening has gone really well for me, and you can even see maybe on the clock here I'm also ahead, something like 11 minutes on the clock. And my opponent has this interesting pawn drop here, and here is this is the position I would say where this whole game kind of hinges on. So spoiler alert, I lose this game. I think it was my first game, and I'm not quite as used to these longer time controls. I think the team tournament was 30 minutes, and the main tournament is like 45. And this is something kind of I was worried about when I was prepping for the whole tournament, is that I kind of wouldn't use my time well enough. So you can see here I'm up something like 11, 12 minutes on the clock, and I have a dominating position, obviously. So I'm going to switch really quickly to Lee Shogi and kind of show some of what the correct line was. Again, spoiler, I didn't play the correct line. So basically, you can see here already that according to the engine, it's plus 9.4. This is like a winning position, essentially. And the correct move is to take the knight on 2-1 with my horse here. I was thinking, okay, I'm so far ahead. Let me just make sure that he doesn't get anything, right? So what I'm afraid of is pawn promotion, knight takes, and then a pawn drop back on 3-6, and he gets to win my knight. The thing is, he actually can't. It's actually too slow. So if I take the knight, I already took the knight, right? So I'm just up a knight. And in this position, he actually can't drop the pawn because this gold is hanging. Now, at first glance, you might think, well, he just takes here and he's threatening my rook. But actually, this is mate. Starting with gold drop here and silver drop on 3-2. So he actually doesn't even have time to take the knight And so obviously, I think if you put this in the engine and you run the engine, it's like plus 30 or something. So unfortunately, I didn't quite spend enough time here and read it through and see that I can just take the knight and that his threat is just way too slow. Um, and I decided here to defend with the gold. Now here even it's not that bad. I think it's still like plus 4 or something like that. Um, and basically my thinking was just okay, like he has one idea, and let me just take it away, and then I'm just gonna take all his pieces. And it didn't really turn out like that. So I could kind of switch it back to the actual game. And then these like next few moves, I really go wrong. So you can see I spent something like a minute on this move, and I really needed to spend a good 5 minutes. I had the time. My opponent found this really nice move, bishop out. Sorry for the janky editing there. But basically, then I dropped the silver on 2-6, just thinking, okay, I'm just going to stop everything he's trying to do. And the thing that I missed, obviously, is that when he had moved his bishop out, now there's a discovered attack on my horse by the rook. And so now here I'm completely losing already, right? Not only am I completely losing because of this gold on 3-4, and now the fact that he's got the rook, my rook is never getting out either. And then I played this move. I'm going to pause it really quickly just to kind of prep you for this. I played this move, bishop on 5-5, thinking I'm forking the rook and the lance on 9-1. And you can even see me in the video here go to take the lance, and I'm just like, wait a minute. There's a pawn in the way. So here you can kind of see I was already in like a panic mode. Like, oh no, like what have I done? And I think really this game is pretty much over at this point. Obviously, I played it out. It's like a team game. It's the team match, and just from how well the opening went, I thought, okay, well maybe there's some chances that my opponent will make some mistakes. But from here, I have to say my opponent converted this game really, really well. I didn't really have very many chances. Like even here, I feel like I played a little bit too scared. I just didn't really have any ideas. I mean, in this case, if he trades the bishop for the rook, maybe I'm even happy because my rook is really doing nothing. And so from here, the rest of the game is me just kind of like fighting, holding on, and hoping that my opponent makes some sort of mistake. So here, for example, I brought my gold up to 2-6. Obviously, I saw that my rook is going to hang, but my idea was, okay, I can take the gold, and maybe my opponent will take it back, and then he'll hang his rook as well. So I was really just kind of like playing for tricks at this point. And I figured, okay, here, even if he sees it and doesn't take, okay, I'll get to take the silver, or maybe I'll have an attack. But again, yeah, like this bishop over here, I've blocked my king off from running. I have no pieces to block. I'm forced to drop my gold, and he's going ahead, and he just has this massive attack where I really can't do anything anymore. So I decided here, okay, I'll just sack the bishop. I get to at least take a piece, and it makes an escape square for my king. But of course, I'm losing a gold for it, and then he's going to be able to take back the bishop. And even here, even worse actually. This I didn't see in game. So I thought, okay, at least I'm taking back the gold. Maybe I'll get my gold to 5-3, and I have a couple pieces in hand. But this move here, horse back to 5-5, really just completely wins the game. And honestly, I probably should just resign. I mean, I probably could have resigned earlier as well, but I was like, okay, it's the team tournament. I don't want to kind of just give up. But yeah, this is definitely resignable. So I played this move pawn, just like really with nothing to do. Although I think maybe this move maybe a little bit slow. I'm not really sure. I at least got my king to safety. And then he finds this really nice move to bring the rook back, and now he's got both his rooks kind of staring at 8-7. I go ahead and I say, okay, like I'm gonna make him win the game. Like he's gonna have to find his way all the way through. And I'm just trying to make any sort of attack that I can. He makes this this horse move, threatening to take the gold. I have to block it. He brings the silver back. And really, again, I'm just trying to make the game as complicated as I can and hope for a mistake. And so this silver drop is kind of that, right? Okay, like maybe he blunders somewhere, and like with the exchanges, or I can get a rook back and then drop it on 3-1. But again, my opponent played really well in this game. After me getting a really nice lead in the opening. But I thought here, okay, you know, maybe we'll do something. I have all these pieces defending, but he found this really nice move. Knight drop on 9-5, which is a really fast attack. He drops the pawn. If I take with the pawn, then he's going to start dropping pawns on directly at my king. So I take with the gold, which also kind of threatens the knight. But yeah, he played really, really well. He goes ahead and sacks the knight, and this kind of weakens my king's head, where his rook is staring at me. So I just basically right now I'm just trying to put as many pieces between me and this rook as possible to really prolong the game. And again, just trying to play for anything here. My idea here is, okay, I'm hitting the rook, but then I'm also being able to go potentially to 6-3 and set up some sort of potential for an attack, right? So here I at least got my pawn back. The rook's not threatening me anymore. Now here I could do knight to 6-3 unpromote, but what I decided to do is promote. And you can even see he was getting ready to move his king immediately. He wasn't really expecting me to promote. My idea was, okay, like if I promote and then and I have the gold drop on 5-2 potential. But he just kind of got rid of that immediately. He went ahead, okay, now I have to kind of just like trade it off. But hey, okay, now I get the knight, and my king is still safe-ish. He drops this knight, which I felt, okay, like it's okay, but I have this really nice silver drop to stop it. And at this point, I'm really just trying to find any sort of attack. Again, just drop the knight, try and get something going on 5-3. I think I have an extra gold in hand as well. It's just kind of off the screen slightly. Again, this is like my very first live game recording. And so it's a little janky, obviously. But I'm setting up some, I have some sort of a potential attack now, right? And so if he messes up his attack, my idea was I have a chance, but he had this really nice gold sack into dragon move, and I resigned because that's mate. And so yeah, first game, I had a great position out of the opening, completely winning, and then I played like way too defensively and blundered my horse basically, and from there my opponent played really, really well and gave me really no practical chances to win the game, and also found a nice mate at the end of the game there. So now on to game two. So game two. Was I think both of our games, maybe even actually all three of our games, were against teams from Germany. I don't know exactly how that worked out, and maybe you noticed, but basically I edited out the thinking time in the first video. And the funny thing is, in this second video, I didn't touch a thing for the first maybe 5-10 minutes, or maybe not 10 minutes, but like for maybe the first 20 moves of the game, I didn't have to edit anything because both of us were just blitzing our moves. So it was interesting because it was a very different feel to this game than the first game. Now, obviously, part of that is because I had such a nice opening. I knew what I was doing, and I think my opponent wasn't familiar with it. Whereas here, I think we're both just familiar with how to play this type of opening. So here, I'm just going for my gungi. It's kind of my comfort zone. And now, my opponent has kind of this pawn pushed on 3-6. I like making the shape that's called tsunogin gangi, which is where you put the silver on 6-3 instead of putting it on 5-3. And when my opponent brings his silver up this quickly, the nice thing about this configuration or this shape is that you can actually castle your king to the right. And what that allows you to do is get your king away from the rapid attack of your opponent, right? And so now, even if he has this big attack going with the silver coming up, my king's not anywhere near it. So now that said, I have, in terms of all of my Gungi games, I would say this structure is the one that I'm the least familiar with. Kind of this Migi-Gyoku formation. It's not one that I play a ton. I just know it's kind of an option when your opponent is going for some sort of rapid attack. So he surprised me a little bit. I thought he was going to go for some sort of Yaguda castle, but instead he went for a more of a Gungi formation as well. Now here, I wasn't completely sure what to do, so I just kind of pushed my edge pawn, waiting for my opponent to come and attack me, and that's what he does. He actually goes ahead and starts the attack here. Now this is not really a pawn you want to take, kind of similar to actually the last game, where you really don't want to let your opponent's silver up the board. So here I counter push, and if you had taken with the silver, then I can take back with the pawn, and the silver doesn't actually get to that 3-5 square. So here we trade pawns. I go ahead and take with my silver, and here he goes ahead and drops his pawn. And I don't really want to run with my silver, because if I run with my silver, then he actually gets his silver up, and his attack's going to work on the third file. And so what I decided to do instead is to just take the silver. Go ahead, trade silvers, and then I can kind of get my bishop out of the way. Now I'm going to pause it really quick here, because this is the first big decision that I have in this game. And you can see actually I went to move, but then I was like, wait a minute, which way should I go? So I'm going to go ahead and move back on over to Lee Shogi here. Let's go and find game 2. And this is the position that's on the board. And my options here, in my head at the time, were, am I going to run my bishop up here or back here? And I didn't like moving it back. Spoiler, Engine thinks it's the best move to move back, just because it kind of like gets in the scope of this. But really, it's not that big of a deal. My gold is defending. It would have been completely fine. And now that I look at it, like, yeah. And, earlier I said this is kind of the structure that I play the least in all of my Gungi games, that I'm least familiar with. And I have a general idea that what I'm supposed to do with my rook is to somehow bring it into the game this way. And sometimes it's on the second file, maybe after the knight's gone, or I push my lance and get it all the way on the edge. And that's generally how I've played. I don't play a ton getting it to here. Actually, I don't think I've ever actually made this move. Now, in this position, it's actually great. Like, I should recognize immediately that my main goal here should be to get my rook on 6-9. I have my pawn here already. Even if he takes back, it's great to get my rook in. And he's left his gold here on 6-1. And so it's kind of just hanging and, right in the line of my rook should I get it to 6-9. And so that's why I think the engine wants to move the bishop back instead of moving it forward to 6-6. Because if you move it to 6-6, now it's blocking your rook. Right? And if, for example, pawn takes, now he's going ahead and potentially attacking the bishop. Now, it doesn't quite work in this spot because this leads to check. But if he castles the king and then pushes, it works out okay for him. And actually, this is what ended up happening in the game. But yeah, like really instructive. Now, the really crazy thing that I wanted to share in this position. So I was thinking, okay, I'm moving the bishop back or I'm moving it up. Engine, again, Engine thinks the best move is to move back, and it thinks the second best move is to go forward. But actually, there's a third move, which is basically tied for the second move, which is pawn takes on 6-3 promotion, making a toking and just sacking off this bishop. And obviously, I didn't think about this move at all, but now that you look at it, like, this is, obviously I sacked the bishop, but now, like, look at how dangerous my rook is, combining with the token going this way. So this looks really dicey. Now, Engine thinks completely even game. but completely even game after having like just pure sack the bishop just goes to show how strong this token is. And in fact, I think the engine's top move is something like rook to 8-3. You want to take this out, but also it's kind of defending the 5-3 square from a distance. And then engine wants to do engine things like pawn drop on 7-3. But this I just wanted to share this because obviously when I'm analyzing my games, I see some crazy engine stuff, and this kind of blew my mind that it wanted to just sack the bishop immediately. But yeah, I mean, its top move is to just kind of move the bishop back and then play for rook onto the 6th file. But I think this is a good learning spot for me because I do end up getting this. I mean, again, I haven't played it a ton, but it's something that happens that I could play more. Like sometimes my opponent goes for the rapid attack, and I specifically don't go for this because I'm not as familiar with it. But now I think looking at this game, analyzing and having played it, like it kind of makes sense when you're supposed to kind of bring your rook around. So let's get back to the actual game. I decide to move the bishop up. He goes ahead and takes the pawn. He did double pump. This happened a few times, actually. I ended up playing this player also in the Blitz tournament, so look forward to that video. I have those games all edited up and ready to go for me to just comment on them. Here's actually another interesting spot that I'll just mention very quickly. I decided to go ahead, push this pawn, and try and trade off bishops because I thought I had better bishop drop spots, right? Like my rook is covering, like basically my entire camp is covered. He can't drop his bishop anywhere. But actually, this type of move is not great. And this is actually something very similar happened to me in one of my actual WOSC games. Actually, the game where I played the highest rated player that I played in the tournament. I think he ended up finishing in the top 10 of the tournament. The same idea came up, which is in this position, my bishop is actually quite active, right? It's almost like almost like a chess way of thinking. Obviously, I think very strong shogi players think this way as well. I don't think this way very much. It's like a leak in my game, which is basically, hey, my bishop is very active. It's doing stuff. My opponent's bishop is not. It's kind of just sitting there, really doing nothing, honestly. Yeah, it's not even defending against a pawn push on the rook pawn because I've kept my pawn back in case I want to jump the knight up. And so really, why would I push my pawn, give away a pawn because he's going to recapture it, and then trade my good bishop for his bad bishop, right? So this is something I learned from this tournament for sure. Reviewing this game, but then also I think when I was reviewing that game with the very strong player, he actually brought it up as maybe one of the moves that kind of put me in a bad position. So yeah, it's like, okay, I'm giving up a pawn and I'm spending 2 moves to trade my good bishop for his bad bishop. And when you word it like that, it sounds completely terrible. And so here I also didn't play the best move here. This bishop drop's not great. I thought it was like, okay, check, and then I can be able to promote it. But actually this gold that he left on 6-1 that I'm not challenging with my rook is preventing me from promoting. And now I kind of just have to trade bishops. I thought it was okay for me just because if his king comes back into the center of the board, it seems pretty scary. And if his gold moves over, then it's this 8th file is weaker. So that's kind of what I was thinking here, but it's not quite enough. And he finds this move to defend the 2nd file to go up with the king. Again, he double pumps. But I think every time he did this kind of double pump, he just ended up playing the same move again. I think technically you're not allowed to do the double pump and then play a different move, like once you've let go of the piece, or else it's an illegal move. And he did this 4 or 5 times, but I think every time he just ended up playing the same move. And I don't think I would have called him on it anyway. But it was just interesting. I actually faced this in a few games, this double pumping. And so I said, okay, let me just trade off my rook pawn and bring it back, and now I have this kind of eternal threat of getting the rook promoting. So he goes ahead and pushes the pawn. I go ahead and recapture. I have to take it. Um, and I think at this point, because I'm not bringing my rook over, I'm just in kind of a bad spot because the rook really belongs on. I mean, on the board it says 4-1, but that's just because it's flipped. Um, and my opponent played this interesting move, bishop drop on, I don't know what, a 1-8 or I think it's going to be like 9-2 or something instead. Um, Obviously, this is scoping the silver that's protecting my king, and his real threat is to push the pawn. Because if I take it, then my rook hangs, right? So let's go ahead and check this position out in Lishogi as well. I think I have this marked off. Maybe I didn't have marked off in the exact right spot. But interestingly, the engine doesn't like this move. The engine just wanted to drop the bishop here on 5-5 directly. And obviously this threatens the same pawn push, but also threatens the knight. And I actually can't block because of the pawn here. And I mean, this is also seems like a good move, but there's actually a really good counter to this. And actually, I think I'm just going to, because this is actually what happened in the game. I actually found this really nice move. And there's a proverb in shogi, which is to defend against major pieces, bring them closer, right? And so I found this really nice pawn drop. Again, double pump. I found this really nice pawn drop. So here, right, if he takes with the pawn, it blocks his own bishop, and he's got a really dumb bishop. And when he takes with the bishop, I can put a silver on 5-4. Now here, I did end up thinking for a little bit. I think I'm not 100% sure how much time I took for this move. But I had two options, right? I could either bring the silver out, or I could have dropped the silver, because I think I have an extra silver in my hand. Yeah, so for some reason I have my pawns to the right. I have my good pieces down here. And maybe this is the position that I want. Oh, the position that I want to analyze is actually a little bit further. But yeah, basically, engine likes dropping the silver better than moving the silver up. I think it's just okay. Like, let's just put more pieces up here. And then he pushed this pawn. And here, actually, the tides turned. It was definitely a mistake on his part. And, you know, I understand why he's doing it. Okay, he's got this, like, really nice attack going. He's going to be able to recapture the silver at some point. But the attack actually isn't, like, super concrete. And I think this here is the position. Yeah, so this is actually the position where I had the biggest advantage in the game, that I had in the game. And the move here that the engine wants after this pawn drop on 4-6 is actually to just run the king. I ended up taking because I just couldn't read it through. But I think here, if you run and your opponent, he goes ahead and recaptures the silver, I have this bishop drop. And it looks like, okay, well, maybe he can just run, right? But actually here, some really nice pawn drop. And against something like this, there's a few different kinds of moves here, but it's all around this and this. I can't remember exactly which variation the engine wants here. So it's something, you know, like a bishop drop here or a silver drop here, maybe even silver drop here. But it ends up being basically that I could even just like take this pawn out if I want, right? And so, you know, if I would have found these best moves, the best move would have been to just run the king. Because he really only has a gold, and if he drops it here, it's kind of wasted in a way, right? He's going to be able to take, but this is kind of slow, and he needs to recapture here, or else he just sacked basically a bishop for nothing. So that's kind of what the engine wants here. And actually, wait, let's see. Maybe I actually have the engine line. So okay, this is what the engine wanted. The engine wants this pawn drop on 2-4 first. And the reason, okay, now I remember this. The reason why is, I mean, you have to take it, or else I'm going to be able to promote my pawn. But now if I drop my bishop drop and we get the same variation, we can actually just drop the silver directly to 2-3. And this is just crushing move. Um, so, I mean, even something like this, right? Um, so yeah, if I could have found this, would have been really nice. But that's very tricky, very subtle. Like, I mean, I analyzed this game with the engine earlier, and I forgot that you need to include this pawn push specifically so you can sack a silver on 2-3. Okay, um, but I think the idea is you don't even without this pawn on 2-4 move, um, his attack is running out, and this bishop drop always exists because he's needing to push his pawn to retake the silver. So this is kind of why the engine doesn't love is bishop sec right here. And really, because I think this is generally why the engine didn't like this bishop drop all the way back on 9-2 to begin with, right? Is specifically this sequence of pawn drop, silver, and then you know, in the variation where he takes is this pawn drop 2-4 stuff. Now I ended up taking the pawn. Generally speaking, when I'm trying to figure out what's going on with like these, you know, tataki no fu or these pawn drops, if I can't figure out what the heck to do, I just take it. It's like, okay, like I get a pawn in hand and I'm not seeing like a direct attack. So how bad can it be to take the pawn is kind of like the basic logic. But the engine doesn't really like it. But I don't think there's anything like, I can't remember if there's anything super concrete here. But yeah, I took it. So let's kind of see how the game progressed from there. I think he just he just takes back the silver on 4-6, and I think, you know, I had a couple, like two blind spots basically this game, which is, you know, I never brought my rook to 6-9, which is really where it belongs. And so here I don't know why, but I decided not to take this time. It's kind of slightly inconsistent if you think about it, but I don't know. I think after my stuff was gone, and here was actually the big mistake of the game, I think, which is to jump this knight. Like I just couldn't find a move, and my thinking here was, okay, I can trade knights, and then hopefully get my rook around to 6-5. So I don't know. Let's see if we can't analyze the move that I was hoping. So here, what I was hoping is to get my rook this way, right? I knew I needed to get it around the 6th file in some fashion, but the all game I just decided not to play this move. And now I wanted to play this move, but my opponent found a really nice move that blocks my idea, and is also just like a gigantic threat. You know, if you put this into the engine, in this position, again, engine wants bishop drop, right? And I just didn't see this. I think part of it also was I didn't like him being able to bring the rook to this file with tempo on the bishop. I think that was kind of what I was thinking. I don't know, I guess I can just do something like this. Yeah, but then like bishop here is very scary. So I think here it's not as good as it was before, because his pawn is like threatening to promote immediately. So yeah, I think here already I'm not in great shape. I kind of like missed my chance earlier to get this bishop drop in 6-4 in. So yeah, I did this knight move, trying to get my rook around. He's double checking to make sure that he wants to take that knight. And this move I think was kind of a clincher in a way, where like, and I really was looking for some move here that could help me mate the king, basically, right? Because I have like the rook staring at what is that, 8-7, I guess, you know, 2-3 or something. He just promotes the pawn, and here actually, you know, I ran instead of taking because I don't want him to take and then be able to redrop and bring his rook around even. He sacked his silver. This gave me a little hope. I think this was not the correct move. I think I think he thought it was mate, but it's not. Basically, I can't take the silver because it's mate. Um, but actually, I can kind of just run away, and it basically gives me room and time to run my king to the edge of the board. Now I think it's still something like -8, -9, something around that range. But before that, it was something like -30. So this gave me a little bit of hope. I thought his attack was a little bit slow, and maybe I can do something. And I think in this position, I mean, I could just go and check the engine, but it's something like -6 or something if I drop a pawn on 4-4. So on this board, it's 6-6, but and given the actual who's sente and who's gote, it's 4-4. Because if he drops a gold on the head, I can take it with the rook. So my rook is actually doing a very good job defending my king here. I have a ton of pieces in hand. And yeah, like it's actually quite threatening. And I think he chose an attack that was just slightly slow. I think it's still, his game to lose. I decided to just go ahead and sack my rook because I thought there must be something here. Look at all these pieces I have in hand. I have a knight, I have pawns, like something's gonna work. Uh-huh. And I thought probably I'm just not finding it because I'm bad. But it turns out actually there isn't a mate here, and sacking kind of just like ended the game immediately. Um, and yeah, so he just ran his king up the board. So obviously, if he runs his king back, um, I had a chance. And here I double pumped into resign, and that's the end of the game. Um, so yeah, I think again here, like if he retreats the king, it gets pretty dicey for him because my other bishop is covering the escape square. But yeah, no, he found the right moves. He escaped up the board, and when he's escaping up the board, there's just not much I can do. So yeah, like here again, like he was a very strong player. I think if you can look at his name tag and it had his rating on it or whatever, and it said 1Q. But we talked a little bit after the game. He's actually Japanese, but from Germany, I think, or he's like lives in Germany and is Japanese, something along that. I can't really remember exactly, and I don't even know if I asked him that. But yeah, we're talking a little bit after the game, and apparently he's like 3 Dan on Shogi Wars, and his pet line is some sort of Yoko Fudori line. He really likes playing Yoko Fudori. He said at the beginning of the game, actually, if you kind of like go back to the beginning of this game, it was a potential for Yoko Fudori, and I think he says in Yoko Fudori he's like over 4 Dan, if it's just Yoko Fudori games. So yeah, like again, he's a really strong player. I had a couple chances here and there, just didn't quite see the moves that I needed to play. But I think this one was like a much more even slash game where I was kind of behind most of the game, I would say, and I just had a couple chances where I could have had something. Whereas in the first game, I had like a completely dominating position, and didn't manage to convert it. So yeah, now okay, I'm replaying the very very end of this, but now let's go ahead and we're gonna take a look at game 3. So game 3, again, these were all against the German teams for some reason. I guess there was just a lot of people there from Germany, and again, see, it's like again pretty much the same opening that I'm playing. This time it's a little bit different. He brought his silver to 4-2. It has some subtle differences in terms of how I like to play against it, which is I go ahead and close my bishop diagonal against it instead of going for the rapid attack. It just has a couple reasons why. And yeah, so here I'm just going into my Gangi again. I'm very comfortable with it. And around here, okay, he's definitely going to go for Migi Shiken. He didn't push his rook pawn. And I'm just going into my anti-Migi Shiken. Really, this is just what I like to play against it because when I know it's coming. And generally speaking, if your opponent doesn't kind of like double push that rook pawn, that's kind of what they're going for. So my general strategy against Rigi Shiken is to get my king in, well, in this board it's 7-9. I'm not 100% sure if it's actually 7-9 in the game. Now, interestingly, my opponent went for this castle, which I don't face a ton. Usually, in this configuration, when I'm going for this type of Migi Shiken game, my opponent's in either like left Mino or they've castled into Yagura of some sort. So I wasn't 100% sure if my general setup against Migi Shiken works against this defense, but I figured, okay, like I don't see any immediate reason. Like I don't play this line and have like a very sharp attack that I need to go for that relies on a specific structure. And so again, like you can see in this game, we're both playing pretty quickly. I haven't cut any parts of this first, however many moves. And this pawn sack is, the idea that I go for in these structures. And the idea is I'm gonna go ahead, sack the pawn. I'm gonna bring my rook up. I'm gonna pause it really quick so I can talk with because I've edited it. We were playing so fast. The idea behind that pawn sack is, I'm gonna bring my rook to defend, so it's okay. It's not like I blundered a gigantic attack against me, and it sets up to bring my silver out and attack him and counterattack, and it saves me a move of having to do it later. In the event that my opponent doesn't start an attack right away. And so that's the first benefit, is that it sets up my attack if my opponent's playing a little bit slower. And the second benefit is when my rook is on 2-6 instead of 2-8, there's a very common bishop drop on 3-9 that happens in these lines, where a two-piece exchange happens on the 6-6 square once my silver goes up to it. And it's basically kind of forking my rook and the two-piece exchange. And so this avoids that line and the possibility of that bishop drop by just kind of getting my rook out of the way. So that's the idea behind this opening, and kind of my setup on my rook side of the board. But as you can see, my opponent decided he's going to go for the attack, and he goes ahead and trades the bishop. This is very, very common. I go ahead and take. And here I think is where I wanted to do a quick analysis, because my opponent played a move that honestly, I don't think I've ever faced this move, which is this pawn push, right? So let's go take a quick look in Lee Shogi. This is going to be game 3. I should have it. Yep, I should have this position. So the most common move and the top 3 engine moves in this position is bishop drop on 2-2, 3-3, and 4-4. the three top engine moves. And the reason is pretty obvious. It's check. And against that, I have, bishop drop on 6-6 usually is the move that I go for. And so I'm very comfortable with playing that position. This pawn push, though, I don't really ever face it, and I think it's for good reason. The engine doesn't like it, but I wasn't quite sure. Now, obviously, I have to take it, and in the game, I do end up taking it. And obviously, my opponent is going for this bishop drop. And here, I obviously need to move the rook in some ways, and so I have really, I guess, probably only 2 options, which is here and here. I think if you go here, you're just kind of losing tempo to this or to a pawn drop or something. And I was trying to figure out which one is better. And at first glance, I felt that rook to 2-6 is bad because I'm not defending this knight anymore. And so, for example, when the bishop goes here, he's now threatening this knight. And if I try and defend it, he can just go back here. And this is terrible for me. Now, the thing that I missed, and this is actually a very common idea in this position that I know about, which is actually this bishop drop here on 4-6. Now, normally you're making this bishop drop just to try and take this knight, and this secondary benefit of it, specifically in this position, I haven't ran into it before because I don't really face this, which is that it defends the knight. Now, so not only does this defend the knight, now my rook also cuts off the horse from getting to my lance. And obviously everything over here is protected. So actually, this horse is kind of dumb. It's not doing anything. Um, and so this is actually a great position for me. This is what the engine wants. I didn't quite understand that and see that this bishop drop defends the knight in this position. So yeah, I didn't go for this. Obviously, I went for rook 3-5, and my thinking is I want to run from the bishop, obviously, but I want to keep defending my knight, and I also I kind of like this. This looks scary, and there's some pawn push shenanigans over here potentially. So that was kind of my idea, and how I wanted to play this position. And I mean, this silver can't go over here, and this is not really threatening. This is what I ended up going for in the game. Again, engine wants the other line because the horse just kind of ends up sitting there doing nothing. And you're gonna say I know about that bishop drop obviously on 4-6. And you'll see actually I end up playing it even in this game at some point. It's just I didn't see that it actually was super good in that position because it also defends a knight. So yeah, here I go ahead. I go to 3-5, and my opponent even surprises me by dropping this pawn here. And actually, this move, not great. It looks good, but this pawn push on 2-4 is actually a big threat. And I can actually go back and look through the actual game in the engine. The reason why the engine really hates this pawn drop is, as in the game, when I take here, there's this threat of bishop drop here, right? Or even like pawn drop here, right? And this really gets even scarier when you've dropped the pawn here and you can't drop a pawn to block this. So this is the main reason why the engine really doesn't like this pawn drop. I don't even know if it's quite good here. But obviously this is a threat mate at the very least. And you have to do I think you have to do something like this even, right? Yeah, I mean, maybe this is okay, but I mean, even something like this looks pretty scary, right? So I mean, the basic idea, it doesn't want to drop the pawn there because it wants to be able to drop the pawn here if you need to. I think but it's a very subtle thing. So it's hard to understand that, I think. I mean, I don't think I even quite understood it during the game. Really, only when I see the engine tell me that this is not a good move, and then I kind of like play out some of the other variations. Do I understand that? But yeah, like pretty interesting position, I think. And this is the spot where, I don't know why it occurred to me in this position, but not in the other position. I think probably because I'm faced with the threat of my knight getting taken directly, versus, needing to read that threat, maybe 3 or 4 moves ahead and then play it. But here's where I played this bishop drop, which is okay. I'm counterattacking the knight and I'm going to defend this square. Okay. I thought, this is one of the downsides of editing the video this way to kind of cut out the thinking time, is that I kind of lose track and I start talking, and then spoilers, I sack my rook. So let's actually just rewind this like a bit, right? So what ended up happening is I dropped the bishop, and my opponent played this really interesting move. Rook takes 6-5. Basically asking me to trade rooks, right? And I really didn't want to trade rooks here. And the reason why I don't want to trade rooks here is because not only does he now get to drop his rook into my camp, whereas my rook drops against his camp aren't that great because he has kind of this Mino-like formation with the silver and the gold. But also when I trade rooks, then his knight gets to jump and gets in the game and hits my silver. So the last thing I was ever gonna do here was trade rooks. I knew for one thing I knew for sure, I'm not trading rooks. And so then I need to figure out, okay, if I'm not trading rooks, what am I doing, right? And like for example, one idea could be, okay, I can trade rooks but make him take my rook. So maybe like just pawn drop on 6/6, rook takes, bishop takes. But then my bishop is not great anymore, and he's gonna be able to take my knight, and I can't take his knight. So that's also not very appealing. And so obviously we already saw what happened. That's why I decided to just sack my rook here. Now, I believe the engine thinks this is the second best move in the position. And I think it thought that the best move was knight to 4/5. So maybe we can take a quick look, right? So if we play this out, yeah, here the engine wanted knight 5/4. And the idea here is A, it's running away, so he doesn't get to take the knight and make a token at the same time, which is pretty good. If he wants to take with the rook, now I can trade rooks and go ahead. I get his knight. His knight doesn't get here. His silver gets into the middle of the board in the middle of nowhere. And I get to make a horse, which even covers the promotion square. Hits this. Rook here, right? This position looks great for me. Here I would have traded rooks. Yeah. This looks great for me. So obviously then if he takes with the silver instead, well, then I can just take his knight, right? Now the rooks are blocked. And actually his silver is kind of pinned in a way. So yeah, engine finds engine moves. This knight move is amazing. Obviously I didn't see that move. But engine thinks this is, I mean, it's worse. It's clearly worse. But it's still okay. Like I'm still at an advantage here. I think it's something like plus 2 point something because I get both these pieces. And this is actually a really big threat, you know. They're like threat of a threat, right? And so here, let's see what happened in the game. So obviously he wasn't expecting that. But I think it was a nice rook sack here. I think it's the most reasonable move to find here versus like that freaking knight move. Right, so he goes ahead, he makes the toking with the knight, but this toking is very far away from my king. It can't really advance yet. So I go ahead, drop my pawn. When you don't know what to do, talk to Kino who. But I mean, I feel like this is an actual good move. And so I think around here, I started figuring out, well, actually, maybe it's not a bad move. And the trouble that I was having in the position is that this rook is blocking me from dropping anything up to this 5th rank. And here I drop this pawn pretty quickly. Actually, I can't remember exactly what the timing on the clock was. And it looks reasonable. Right, okay, I'm dropping a pawn on the knight's head. How bad can it be? But the engine thinks now this is like a completely equal game. And I had a much better move, which I considered, but I couldn't quite find the continuation, which is kind of stupid now I look at it. Like the continuation is completely obvious. Which is knight drop on 3/4. And you're threatening the gold drop on 2/2. Like I think I didn't quite have in my head yet that I had a gold in hand from sacking that rook. But yeah, knight drop on 3/4 here is a gigantic threat. And it's also a very common theme, right, to drop knights on top of knights' heads, especially when the knight is part of the king's castle in this way. And actually, like gold drop on 2/2 is just like essentially just if you get it is like winning on the spot because king has to go to 4/1 and then you have horse to 7/4 check and hitting the rook. Yeah, like that would have been nice if I would have been able to find that. And obviously he gets to play a move in between me dropping the knight and me dropping the gold, but then he has to worry much more so about how do you defend against this gold drop. And you know, given the pieces in hand, he really doesn't have a great option. It's probably actually to just drop a knight on 2/2 or something. I'm really not sure. But yeah, that was a missed opportunity here to drop the knight on 3/4. Now he quite doesn't see that it wasn't that big of a threat, and he drops this pawn. And now obviously let me just like move some of the pieces around here. What he's afraid of is what is that? What happened? Ah, yeah, okay, drop the pawn. So what he's afraid of is this. I take, he takes with the silver, and then I take with the gold. And what he didn't want is to allow me to take this with the pawn, and then him having to take with the king. And that's what I was thinking as well. And that's why he dropped this pawn. I take, and he took with the silver. And here is where I started to kind of figure out some of the issues with the position. Number one, I don't have any pawns left. And if I do something like horse takes here, he gets to move his rook around and get it in the game. Right now, this rook is staring at nothing. It's really not doing anything. But if he gets it around and in, now he's in business. And so I started to think, okay, like, well, I want to drop something here. Let me drop a knight here. But actually, wait a minute. This rook is covering the square. So I was trying to find an attack here. And I really couldn't find one. You know, if I had another pawn, I could just drop a pawn here and then drop a knight here, which would have been great. I mean, I think I end up just taking this, and that's a top engine move, but I thought I had better. So this pawn drop actually ended up working out okay for him, even though the engine didn't like it. Because, and the funny thing is, the reason why the engine didn't like the pawn drop is because it wants to do, I can't remember what the attack is. Okay, let's just say it's something like, that's not the attack. But basically it's saying, oh, I'm just going to take it with the king. This is why the engine is fine with not dropping the pawn here. Because I'm just going to take with the king. Because I can't drop a knight here. I can't drop a knight here. I have no pawns. King's completely safe. So that's why the engine thinks it's fine and not really a problem. It's just completely fine taking with the king. But again, that's kind of engine things, right? So he drops the pawn, I take, silver takes, and I ended up, I ended up going ahead and take this pawn. So obviously, okay, I get a pawn back in hand, I need a pawn in hand, and it hits the bishop and forces the bishop to kind of do something. But yeah, his idea was, okay, let me block the horse so that I can take with the silver, which ended up working out pretty well, actually. Yep, we see this move, and now he's going to go ahead and promote the horse. But again, like him taking the gold is not really that big of a threat. All of these squares are covered, and I can drop a pawn if I need to. So here, I went ahead and dropped the pawn on the silver's head. He ran back with the silver. Again, double pump. This is really a common thing with these double pumps. I don't think it's something I really do very much. I think I did it once at the end of the game, but I double pumped into resign, right? So it was more like, oh, this doesn't do anything. Okay. Here's the question mark, right? So I was starting to notice, obviously, all the attacks that I want to do with these knight drops, it doesn't work because this freaking rook is in the way. So I thought, okay, how can I block the rook? And so this is my idea for blocking the rook. It's like, okay, let me just drop this gold. I can trade my pieces off, and I have a much better, his king is much weaker than mine. This horse isn't really that scary. And I should have a better attack, right? This pawn on 3-4 is a really dangerous pawn. So my initial idea here was, let me drop the gold. Let's trade off the pieces. And now I don't have to worry about this rook, and I'm going to be able to drop my knight on like 4-5 or something. So that was my initial idea. But, spoiler, I decided here to take with the pawn instead. And my idea for taking with the pawn here was the following. If I take with the pawn, it blocks the rook from all the squares that it's defending anyway. So I can drop my knight on 4-5 if I want to, right? So that, and B, I don't give away my horse for this rook that now isn't really doing anything. So it's kind of like some like similar argument that I was making earlier about the bishop trades, except in this case it's completely wrong. It was much better to actually just trade off all of the pieces, mainly because he has no attack. I have 4 generals defending my king. He only has 2, and I already have a pawn on 3-4, and I can kind of just like drop a piece in and attack him. So this was actually a pretty big mistake. You know, my initial plan was to just trade everything off, but I decided, let me just block with the pawn, you know, because his rook doesn't. And actually, this is also kind of funny. He had this habit of pointing to a bunch of squares on the board. I I would recommend against doing this just because it makes it a little bit more obvious what you're thinking. It might be a little bit easier for your opponent to kind of plan for what you're planning because you're literally pointing at what you're planning. Um, but yeah, like here, I thought like he does. What is he gonna do? Yeah, this is actually not. This is a kind of a tough position. So he comes up with this knight move. I didn't think it was good because I'm just gonna take it. And okay, he's gonna take. I get the rook. He gets my gold, but my king is still pretty safe here. And now I have a rook in hand. Um, so here I really just needed to find the right attack at this point, right? Um, but it was actually pretty hard to find a good move here. Now I have three knights in hand, which is pretty cool, obviously. And there's got to be something here, right? And actually, I think I found the right starting move, I believe, which was to just, yeah, go ahead, drop the silver right in, right? And so the idea here being if he takes with the silver, I can take with the pawn, king comes up, and then bam, I get my knight drop. Or even I drop the rook from behind, and I'm in, basically. I think if I got that off, it's pretty much winning. But he moved his king back to 4-1 here, and I believe when you put this into the engine, it gives something on the order of plus 99. So it's not mate, but like it's very very winning. And even here, I found the correct first two moves. I just missed the third move. I mean, obviously the obvious move is obviously to just take the silver. Um, but the follow up isn't obvious. So yeah, I think I left in some of the thinking time here just because I know now this is like a completely winning. So obviously I'm going to go ahead and take. He's going to take. He took with the gold. I think that's probably the best move. And again, I found the best move here. I think technically the engine wants it on 8-1, but I don't think it's that big of a difference. And now he's in quite a pickle, right? So let's scander over to Lee Shogi again. Okay, let's kind of advance the moves here. And I drop here, and he ends up dropping the gold. I don't know I can't remember if he moved it on the board yet. But here you have to block, right? If you run, I just have like a silver drop. And like this is obviously completely winning. And if you try and go this way, there's like this, right? So he has to block, and he does. And here, there's just a completely winning move. And I think the why I didn't find it is I actually didn't see this sequence that we just showed, where if he runs the king, there's this knight drop into this rook promotion because that square is now supported by the knight, right? And when he tries to run here, there's just a mate, right? It's actually a very simple mate. I just didn't see it. So he drops the gold, and basically here, like, you just drop the knight, and it's completely winning, right? He can't go this way. Again, like I'm just gonna keep showing this freaking mate, right? And so he has to run this way. But obviously, if he runs here, I'm just taking with check. I mean, if he runs here, I'm still just taking the gold. And obviously, this is just completely winning. This is a threat mate to here, and he has to block. But then I'm just gonna drop pieces over here, maybe drop a knight even, right? So this was the right answer. Is just drop the knight, and it's completely winning. So I didn't find it mainly because I honestly don't know why. And I think one of the weaknesses that I found in my game, like a kind of like general level, especially after playing in this tournament and playing against these European players. I think I felt the difference in how we play and the different strengths that we have, um, which is that I don't actually calculate very much. Generally, I'm playing based on intuition and feel. So, like, I get into a position and I'm like, okay, in this position, I should kind of play moves like this, right? So, in this position, that would be something like, oh, maybe I drop a knight here, right? Block his escape route, drop a knight here, attack. I don't actually calculate in the sense that I'm not sitting here saying, okay, if I drop my knight here, what does he do next? And then how do I respond to that? I'm playing much more so on like intuition. I don't know if you're familiar with the difference in some of the shogi AIs. So there's basically two general types right now. One is neural network something something. It's NUE and NUE, and the other one is deep learning based DL shogi. So it's like the top two shogi engines right now. It's the top of the neural network type, which is based heavily on calculation, and then the other one being DL Shogi, which is the deep learning type, which is based more on evaluating positions. And I think my strength generally is more on evaluating the position and kind of having a feel for what types of moves should be played in the position versus actually just concretely calculating moves and variations and seeing what's actually going to happen. And I think that's why I end up missing a lot of these types of moves. I don't actually calculate this move, this move, this move. I kind of just look at the position and say, I should probably play a move like this. And that's actually what I started noticing is that my opponents, on the other hand, were much better at calculating variations. They weren't quite as good at evaluating positions. And also just like knowing openings, right? Like I got my advantage in that first game from the opening. But yeah, so let's just play the game out. Now that I kind of showed you the right move, let's see what wrong move I picked. um, and I mean, it's gonna be along those lines, right? Like, okay, like what is the position kind of dictating me to do versus can I just calculate a completely winning variation? And now that I know that that's a weakness of mine, I know to work on it, right? So yeah, I played this kind of knight drop, threatening this pawn promotion. And the problem is actually the move that he just pump faked. He's gonna end up playing it, which is this gold drop on 6-1. And the reason why the gold drop on 6-1 is a problem is because in all those variations where we were mating the king, right, after like knight drop on 3-3, king to 4-2, knight drop 6-4, I was promoting my rook, right? I was promoting my rook to 7-2. And now I can't do that because this gold is there. Now I think when I dropped this knight, I did, I say I wasn't calculating very much, but I think at this point I was like, wait a minute, I've got this. Hold on, let's just actually move. Yeah, I thought, maybe I have a mate somewhere. So I started calculating here. Maybe I have a mate somewhere. Obviously, I should be calculating earlier. But I thought, maybe there's like a concrete mate here. Let me look for a mate. And what I saw, or at least, the variation that I read, was something like this. I think... What was it? Actually, now I can't remember exactly. There's some like silver sack type move here that I was reading. But I can't remember what it was now. But basically, I saw a mate of some sort, or like a very, very nice attack, should my opponent go in this direction. But I'm still trying to remember what it was. Or maybe if my opponent goes this way, I just have this, right? And this knight is threatening mate. Next move. So I think that was my idea here. But what I didn't see is he can just run this way. And again, remember, the reason why he can't do that here is because this gold hangs. And I just take it with my rook. So this knight move was just slow. And it let him kind of just like build up his defenses a bit. Now, even then, I think I'm still winning. And I just need to do something probably like this. Maybe, okay, like cover this escape route and then drop. Or maybe just promote my pawn. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, the king moving this way, and now I just have like too many pieces that aren't covering enough squares to really attack. And now my rook's completely out of the game. And I think the tides turned quite a bit here. You know, I didn't find this knight drop move fast enough. You know, I dropped it one move too late. So yeah, my opponent runs his king. Again, you know, I was trying, when I'm editing it, I'm trying to edit out some of the thinking time. You know, as much as possible, I wanted to try and keep the ending position in terms of like what it looked like with like where people's stuff is, as close as possible to where I introduce it. So it kind of just looks like, you know, there's no time lag. But obviously when he's doing all of these, you know, expressions with his hand and pointing stuff and it's over the board, I can't edit it quite exactly the way I wanted it to. So in some of these cases, I just, you know, I'm just going to leave it in. It's pretty entertaining. And you can kind of see, maybe get a little bit of a feel for what it's kind of like playing over the board, right? Like this is the type of thing you're not going to get at all playing online, right? You're not going to see the other person thinking and how they're thinking about their moves. So I left it in some of these cases. So here I just went, okay, like I guess I'm just taking this lance. And then he gets this this silver drop, which is a threat mate. If he takes, he's just going to drop the rook. I defend, and around here it's just like, something has gone wrong. I don't have an attack anymore. My rook is completely out of the game, and my king is about to get mated. And so he makes this move, which is, I believe it's threat mate plus horse threat. I drop this knight, but yeah, it's just mate. Silver drop, and here I just resign, right? Like I run the king, and then the horse is up. I tried to create a threat mate, right? But it's too slow. He had mate. Looking back at it now, maybe I had. Whoops! Sorry, I need to go this other way. Maybe I actually had this. Because this defends and hits this. So what happened? Actually, I didn't actually see this at the time. See, because now he doesn't have this silver drop. Interesting. I mean, is it made anyway? No, right? It's definitely not made. So maybe I had this, actually. Yeah. But I mean, well. But I can run this way now. Well, anyway, I guess I'll like look at it again later. But maybe there was some interesting opportunity to actually run my horse while protecting 7-9. So yeah, those were my games from the team tournament in WOSC. Unfortunately, I went 0-3 in these games, and I was actually board 3, which is crazy. I felt, you know, I went to it, and I thought it was going to be a little bit unfair that I was board 3. And the only reason why I was on board 3 is because they have a rule that you have to rank your team based on ELO rating, and I had no ELO rating, so I had to be on board 3. But I lost all my games. So maybe it was fine. And so, yeah, like my confidence was not great after this. But the Blitz tournament really helped. And actually, you know, I was really looking forward to the Blitz tournament because essentially it's the format that I play the most. It's very similar to the Shogi Wars 10-minute format, which is 8 minutes, no increment. And obviously Shogi Wars is 10 minutes, no increment. So I was really looking forward to that format. And the next video will be me reviewing all of my Blitz games. So obviously there were something like 7 Blitz games. I ended up only recording 6 of them. But those will be a bit more of a fast analysis, and we're just going to watch the games play out in real time because, hey, they're 8-minute games. They're really fast. So, yeah, hopefully you like this format. I tried to mix in some Lee Shogi analysis with some of the actual live play. Obviously, it took me quite some time to figure out exactly how to do that. And then also to actually, edit out all of the video, and you're trying to edit out as much of the thinking time as possible, because otherwise, each game is like over an hour. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I'm gonna try and put out a lot more videos coming up. I'm feeling much better now, and I think I was just a little bit shogied out from the tournament. It was a lot of shogi over the course of like 3 or 4 days. And then also, you can see I lost all my games in the team tournament. I did a little bit better in the Blitz tournament, and then we'll see how I do in the main tournament. But I was a little bit disappointed in exactly how the results went. But I've been on a break now for quite a while. I haven't played that much shogi in the last couple of weeks, just here and there, some 3-minute games. But now, I needed to actually get these videos out, because I promised the people that I played, hey, I'm gonna record it. Is it okay if I record it? Oh yes, I'm gonna do videos on it, right? So I actually have to get these out. I made promises to people, so I'm getting them out now. I'm actually pretty happy with it, getting going again, and reviewing these games. It's kind of like, okay, like I'm kind of pumped now to start playing some shogi again, and try to get better, because I think I really figured out what it is that I need to work on from a lot of the games that I played in Barcelona. So thanks if you made it all the way to the end. This is a bit of a long one. And hopefully you're looking forward to the rest of the videos that I'm going to do. So thank you.